What is going on, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Welcome back to another Steelers post-game show. The Steelers win 27-14 over the Cleveland Browns. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Bryan Davis. Dave Schofield is not able to join us. We knew that. No emergency or anything like that. And so it's just the two of us breaking down this win. Bryan, welcome to the show. What's your knee-jerk reaction?
Jeff, my knee-jerk reaction is the Steelers need to come out and have a statement game. It started off slow without George Pickens because it seemed like they were getting things together, but they had the complimentary cast get things together and playing complimentary football, like Mike Tomlin likes to call it, in the post-game press conference. I feel like they grew up a lot as a team, grew stronger as a team today, and I feel like this was a game that after they got that lead, I was comfortable. I didn't even worry about a thing, Jeff.
Yeah, and so my knee-jerk reaction is something that I talked about on my Steelers Grilling Thoughts, which I put on Twitter and on our YouTube Shorts in case you missed it. We were asked on Thursday with a super chat from one of our loyal listeners, and they asked, how much do the Steelers need to win by for you to be happy with the victory on Sunday? And I think that I might have said like a double-digit victory or 2 scores or something along those lines. And Dave said, you just got to win, and that's it. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, and Dave's right. We never look back. If you look at like a Super Bowl year, go back to 2005 or 2009, doesn't matter which year you're looking at. No one ever looks back on a victory and says, damn it, I wish that one was better. Like they don't say that. You might have said, hey, you could easily say, look at the 3 losses on the Steelers docket. Man, I wish they could have beaten the Cowboys at that time on Sunday Night Football, or I wish they would have gone into Indianapolis and not dropped one to Joe Flacco and company. Just win the game. You just win your 10th game, win the divisional game, get a 2-game lead on the Ravens, and now all of a sudden this last daunting test here, these last 4 games on the slate are, I think, a little less daunting because of this victory, because of the way things have played out. 10-3, looking good. Just win the game. That's exactly what the Steelers did. They maximized every single takeaway, every single mistake the Browns made. I think good teams do that. You brought it up, Bryan. They did start off slow, but ultimately you win the game. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah, that is all that matters. And the great thing about it, Jeff, is that they faced adversity in this game, especially when Jerry Jeudy caught that 35-yard pass. Mm-hmm. And the media bring it up to Mike Tomlin saying, what about all those long drives and all this? He goes, I don't think we've had a lot of long, big play drives all year. I'm going to disagree with you, is exactly what he said. But they had some they had some adversity in this game. They turned it around, and they looked like a playoff team today, and they looked like a division winner today too. And remember, we've talked about it since the Cleveland loss. We talked about it with all these other teams, with the Commanders losing to Dallas, with the Texans losing to Tennessee. We talked about how all bets are off in division football, and don't look now, but you are now 3-1 in your division, and your only loss is to a team that is officially out of it maybe a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that might have been the biggest part of this, is the Steelers officially end the Browns season. They're now mathematically eliminated. Dunzo. Like, I love that. I absolutely love that. But, the thing is, too, is when you think about this game, there's a lot that goes into it. We're going to break it down like we always do. I do want to mention, before I get to some super chats here, because they're starting to roll in, injuries. So Mike Tomlin did talk about Larry Ogunjobi, who I believe was a groin injury, and he did return to the game. So he tried to come back, and then he removed himself and said he can't go. So he was then out. So Tomlin said he's going to take a look at that. I think it's never good to have an injury, but the fact that you might have someone ready to go in his place if he does have to miss some time. Montravius Adams could come back as early as this week. Dean Lowry was inactive for this game. So you do have some help there as the Steelers now turn, and they got to get ready for Saquon Barkley and the Eagles coming up on Sunday in Philadelphia. Also, Dante Jackson left the game with a back injury, but he was able to return. And then George Pickens. I mean, that was the biggest surprise of the day for me. I'm at the gym, and I know Dave is doing inactive list, and all of a sudden I see it come up on my phone. It's like, yeah, George Pickens isn't playing today. I'm like, oh my gosh, here you go. Like, it's incredible. What are they going to do without George Pickens? It was kind of a hodgepodge. It was a little discombobulated at times, but they did get the job done. So I wanted to bring up those injuries. I don't think there were any others, were there, Bryan?
No, there was Mike Tomlin mentioned that there was a lot of bumps and bruises in this game. TJ Watt went out for a play or two, but came back in. They said it looked like he got hit in the face, but he was limping. But next thing you know, his his fingers in the dirt, and he's back out there. So, you just never know. But I mean, this is every single week in the NFL, man. Every single play is like a car wreck.
Yep.
If I just step off the wrong step, if I miss a step, I'm feeling it for 3 days. You might not know what it's like, Jeff.
Well, but you're talking about your athletic prowess right now, Bryan.
All right, we're just gonna back to you, Jeff.
Let's go to some super chats here. Let's start off with Sean Manahan, who gives us $5. Thank you for the tip. All these people that give us money, we appreciate it. So 2024 Steelers offense is matching the Steelers 2016 Killer B points per game. Steelers go to they get 27 points in this game. That is 2 points higher than their average of just under 25. I think 24.9 is where they were. So yeah, that's going to tick up a little bit. I don't know what the points per game was in 2016. Does anyone know off the top of their head?
No, but I could probably grab that real quick.
Okay. Let's go on to John Leon Bruno, gives us $4.99, said nothing better than watching Judy cry on the sideline. Suck it, clowns. I got to be honest, there's something about the Browns that gets me fired up. I'm down here watching the game with my kids, and the Steelers get the interception. Jimmy Pierre comes up with the INT, and I'm like, yeah, suck on that, Browns. And then Kadarius Toney fumbles it, and Ben Skoranek gets the recovery. They suck on that. Yeah, I agree with you. Suck it, clowns. If it's Brown, flush it down. My daughters were just walking around saying that all day.
My kids have known that for years.
Exactly. Justin Gall gives us $19.99, says knee jerk, solid performance on all three sides of the ball, but we left a lot out there to the point of frustrating. But assured that our A game stacks up against any team. Yes, we are Super Bowl contenders. I don't know how anyone can watch this team and say, yeah, like they could beat anyone. They can also lose to anyone. That's the scary part about this team. But I don't see anyone in the NFL that is running away with everything, like running away and hiding from the field. So I appreciate the tip there, Justin. Thank you very much. He said, then John Liam Bruno also gives us $4.99 again. Tomlin haters now left to be mad that we're not undefeated. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be people that complain about something.
Can I say something about that real quick?
Go ahead. Sure.
You mentioned it earlier, and I love that you mentioned it. And I didn't jump on it at the time, but I was thinking it. So it's important to me to look back at week 4 and week 5 and actually be thankful that they lost those games. Because I don't think, this is just in Bryan's mind, I don't think that you're in the position you are at 10-3 without those losses. I think you can be in a great position without the Cleveland loss, but you're still riding with Justin Fields possibly. And as much as look, I think Justin Fields is still important to this team, but Russell Wilson is the guy right now to lead them. And you don't have Russell Wilson without those losses. I just don't think you do. I mean, we heard so much about you replacing a quarterback when you're at 4-2. Are you replacing a quarterback at 6-0? No.
I don't know. Tomlin might have. I don't know. We'll never know. But I kind of disagree with one thing you said. I don't think Justin Fields is important to this team. It's Russell Wilson's show. Like, this is him. Like, this is all him. The Steelers are going to win or lose with Russell Wilson at the helm. And Justin Fields, maybe he comes in sparingly. I think the Steelers are slowly realizing that they can't just do this every single game. It's got to be very specific in terms of the situation. So we'll see. But that's a good point. I like how you brought that up. Let's go to Justin Gall again, 1999. He said, interesting enough, the game we need to win now is the Ravens. That could win the division and almost certainly lock up the number 3 seed. Everything else is background noise and long shots as far as the number 1 seed or 2 seed. Yes, in terms of the division, the only game that truly does matter with a 2-game lead is Baltimore. If you win that game, doesn't matter. Like you could lose to Philadelphia, you could lose to Kansas City, and you still control your own destiny as long as you beat the Ravens. However, things happen, things change. The Steelers could go to Philadelphia and win for the first time since, what was it? What's the year, Bryan?
1965.
Yeah, since 65. Could
59 years, Jeff.
Could they break that streak? Yeah, they absolutely could. The Carolina Panthers took the Eagles to the wire today. And so the Eagles win the game, but still, I mean, this is a situation where could they beat the Chiefs at home on Christmas Day? Yeah. Could the Texans beat the Ravens on the Saturday before Christmas? Or there's all these situations, or they actually play later on
that is on Christmas Day. Yeah.
There's so many things that go wrong. The Steelers need to handle their business. This was a big step in the process, and I'm glad they got the win. All right, let's go to Hillbilly Magnum 2017 $5 tip. Great answer to the snow game, a very satisfying win. Really enjoy your content. Keep on rolling. From Mountain Home, Arkansas. Go Steelers. Mountain Home, Arkansas sounds like the home of sounds like the town of a wrestler, like
Hailing from
yeah. The Undertaker was from Death Valley.
He's actually from Texas,
Whatever. Sean Manning gives us $5. No more jinxing us, saying we have no injuries on Thursday's show. They didn't have any injuries. I had people coming at me on Twitter saying, way to go, Jeff. You guys jinxed us on the preview. They didn't have any injuries on Thursday. How did we jinx anything? It's not like we're they're so great, they're not going to have any issues. I don't know what to say. I get what you're saying, but at the same time, we were just reporting what was out there. He gives us another $5. His 2016 was 24.9 points per game, and so far we were 24.7. So yeah, I didn't realize that. Wasn't 2017? Didn't they have a higher average in 2017?
They're right. It's right in front of me right now. They were actually 25.4, and they were 8th in the league. With 406 points in 2017, and they 24.9, and they were 399. They had 399 points, so they had less points, and they were 10th in the league. So 25.4. 2017 was better.
Yeah.
But hey, real quick, 2018, they were 6th, 26.8 points per game. But that was the year without Le'Veon Bell, and that was the Antonio Brown implosion.
Oh, of course. How could I forget?
But 26.8.
Richard Gummy started that year. So Gimme Thunder gives us $5, says it was a slow start, but that helps show off how well this team has been at halftime adjustments this year. After the last few years, it's nice to see. Absolutely. The third quarter, I think the Steelers in the season have surrendered something like 16 points in the third quarter the entire season. Think about that. And it's it's one of the lowest marks. I think it's a third lowest mark after, what is this, 14 games? No, 10-3, 13 games since the merger. I retweeted it. One of the PR people at the Steelers put that tweet out there. I was like, that's incredible. And so they are a really good second half team. And really, in this case, it was a second quarter team too, because they ended up blanking the Browns in the second quarter, and they go 10 points to 0 points in the second quarter, take a 13-7 lead into half. But a lot of that were missed field goals. So, it is what it is. But you ready to break this down, Brian?
I absolutely am. I'm going to have fun doing this.
All right, let's start with the quarterback on the offensive side of the ball, like we always do. Russell Wilson, 15 of 26, 158 yards, 6.1 average, 2 touchdowns, did not throw an interception. He was sacked one time, and I know a lot of people were like, oh, it sucks that it was Myles Garrett. Russell Wilson knew the situation. He wasn't going to throw the ball away because it would have stopped the clock. He took the sack because it was going to keep the clock moving. So I know that it sucks that Russell Wilson got sacked by Myles Garrett, but in the grand scheme of things, it was a smart play. He ends up with a 101.1 rating. Brian, what do you think about Russell's play today?
I thought it was really good. One of those plays too, the intentional grounding, I thought Tony Romo thought that it was ticky-tack and bogus. So, I thought it was, I don't want to call it a game managing performance, but it was a perfect game against, I still think the Browns are a very tough defense. Those defensive backs are good. You've got Myles Garrett breathing down your neck. They did what they had to do. Mike Tomlin coded 3 phases, and all 3 phases of the game they won.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first quarter was atrocious offensively. They did not have a third down conversion in the first quarter. They were 0 for 1 in the red zone in the first quarter. They looked lost. The play calling was awful. I mean, absolutely awful. In the first quarter, I thought that Arthur Smith rebounded. He definitely made some adjustments in the second half, and I thought it improved immensely. But the first quarter was just, I mean, I know that they have a good defense, and that's something that the Browns 3-9 record, or now 3-10, has kind of hidden the fact that they still do have a really solid defense, but I expected better, I guess. Maybe that's just my own mistake. That's my own expectations, but Russell Wilson did rebound. 15 of 26 is not going to be something that you write home about. 158 yards, but he did have 2 touchdowns, a good play action or a read option to Van Jefferson, and then a nice throw, nice catch and run by Pat Freiermuth for 2 touchdowns. I love that he didn't turn the ball over. So I thought this was a good game. Is it going to wind himself on the winners list? Is he going to get a game ball? The answer is no to either of those for me. But I thought Russell Wilson played well, let me put it this way, and I'll throw it to you and give your take, Brian. If this was bad Russ, I'll take bad Russ.
Oh, yeah.
Russ is still winning Russ, like he had some throws sail out of bounds on him. And I don't know if that was the wind or intentional, just kind of throwing it away. But if this was like not so great Russell Wilson, we can live with that, right?
Yeah, you just won, and you were in a position where you really, if you weren't running out the clock, Jeff, you were going to put 30 on this team. Yeah. That's there was part of me, and this is horrible fandom, but there was part of me saying, hey, don't get the first down here. I want to see Boswell come out and push it up to 30.
I thought about that. I was like, oh, if John Harbaugh was the coach of the Steelers, they would have put up 30 at the minimum.
Yeah, but that comes out and bites you. That bites you, though.
Well, and it also skews stats too, because that goes down as a failed red zone trip.
Yeah.
So the Steelers finished 2 for 4 in the red zone, but that fact that they kneeled out in victory formation is a negative in the stat sheet, when in reality, you probably say 2 for 3. So, and that's also like a failed third, a conversion and all that stuff. But still, I thought Russell Wilson, he turned it on when he had to. It was tough. Let's move to the pass catchers, because the next part of this is life without George Pickens. So George Pickens not being in the lineup, what does it look like? Well, at times it was rough. The Steelers, from a receiving standpoint, Pat Freiermuth, 3 catches on 3 targets. So last week he had 7 targets, only 3 catches, all of them for 48 yards, 16-yard average, did have a touchdown with 21-yard long. Scotty freaking Miller comes up with a huge play on 3rd and 6 down the stretch in the 4th quarter. 3 catches on 4 targets for 38 yards, that long of 21. Mike Williams, he comes up big as well with a conversion catch of his own. 3 catches on 4 targets for 36. Jaylen Warren has 2 catches for 25. Van Jefferson, the 1 catch for 10 yards and a touchdown. Calvin Austin didn't really get in the mix in this game. 1 catch, 4 targets, 4 yards. That's it. Brian, what do you think about the pass catchers without George Pickens?
Once they got their footing and realized what they could do without George, this was all Russell Wilson too. Russell Wilson commanded this game and got them going after the growing pains of the first quarter. I thought they were pretty good. The big thing for me, every week when we talk about this, Jeff, I talk about drops, and the drops weren't there. They obviously were getting open enough. So I thought it was a successful day at the office, showing what you can do. You don't want life without George Pickens. And I knew there was going to be some growing pains, but if they're who we think they are, and they obviously were today, they got it together. And so you rely on a guy like Scotty Miller. You rely on a guy like, I know Ben Skoranek. I don't think he had a catch. He had a great game, but I don't know if he had a catch, but I saw him out there. Mike Williams, I knew Mike Williams was step up today, and that was great. The push-off call, I saw it, but I didn't see it, the replay, so I didn't see too much on it. Was that egregious?
No, it was not egregious. Both OPIs, one against Cleveland, one against Pittsburgh, were both ridiculously soft. I thought the most egregious call, which wasn't even made, it was I want to say it might have been Njoku in the 4th quarter. He had a push off, and I don't think it was the touchdown catch, but one of them, I was like, man, that was worse than Mike Williams and the Browns OPI that was called earlier.
I think it was the touchdown pass.
Maybe. You might be right.
But no, they got open. They had to go through those growing pains first. And once that first quarter ended and they started completing some balls, they're like, all right, we got this. And Russ started to cook, if I can use the phrase.
Yeah. And I think people need to understand that without George Pickens, it completely alters what a defense is doing against the Steelers. So George Pickens is that threat where this guy can take the top off the defense. He can do everything, really. He can run the dig route. He can run the post route. He can do the back shoulder. He can do it all. He's a dynamic playmaker. He might have a bad attitude at times, but he's a dynamic playmaker. And so when you have George Pickens out of the lineup, who do you have to double team? The answer is no one. Do you have to double team Calvin Austin? Only in certain situations, but probably not. Pat Freiermuth? No. Mike Williams? No, not really. And they might have had to shift away on occasion. Van Jefferson? No. And so I think for this situation, people need to realize that a lot of the early struggles, and I need to realize this myself, a lot of the early struggles were the Steelers trying to figure out how are we going to move the ball without the defense having to really focus on that one player who is that dynamic. They don't have a lot of those type of players on this offense. This is not one of those situations where, oh, this guy's out, don't worry about it, he's going to take over. They don't have that guy. And we've been screaming that from the rooftops all season. But I will say this. They did adjust, and they started to pick their spots. As Cleveland started to sink down into the box, we're going to stop the run. That's when you saw Mike Williams with the beautiful catch on the sideline. That's when you saw Scotty Miller with the beautiful catch along the sideline. They just had to wait and take their shots at appropriate times. I still would like to see someone like Pat Freiermuth get more involved, but these guys are not going to create a ton of separation on their own. And so that's why I think the passing game was a little bit struggling. But Bryan, any final thoughts there before we move on?
Yeah, and this is not me being critical of you, Jeff, but I think 2 touchdowns are really getting involved. So, I mean, I'll take those 2 scores because that's your difference in the game. I'd like to see, but I see what you're saying. I'd like to see him have old Travis Kelce type numbers, 8, 9, or what Brock Bowers is doing with the Raiders right now, 10, 11 balls, you're just controlling the middle of that. But again, they found ways to find a Van Jefferson for 2 balls that were perfect enough, and they were moving chains. So I'll take a lot of 35s, and I'm talking, when I say 35-yard games from a whole bunch of people than the old Antonio Brown, 130 yards and nobody else.
I think for me, it's the targets with Pat Freiermuth. I don't need Travis Kelce 130-yard receiving game to be awesome, but I mean, he got 3 targets today. So you're missing Pickens and he's your outside threat. You would think that they could find ways of creating space for for Pat Freiermuth in the middle of the field. I know that's not Russell Wilson's MO, but still, I guess that's what I would hope. I'm not saying that it was a bad game. It wasn't a bad game for the pass catchers, but this was what everyone wondered, what would it be like without George Pickens? You got to see it today. Still a winning effort, but still. Yeah.
And you got to see them face adversity, Jeff, and you got to see them figure it out, and it didn't take a week or 2 to figure it out.
Yeah, that's true. Very, very accurate. So let's talk about the running game. We had hoped that the Steelers would be able to run the ball and just control the clock. What's funny is that both teams actually had the same amount of time of possession in this game. And even 30 minutes for both teams. Najee Harris, though, leads the Steelers in rushing, 16 carries on 53 yards, a 3.3-yard average, 1 touchdown, a 20-yard long. Jalen Warren, 9 carries, 47 yards, 5.2-yard average, no touchdowns, a 14-yard long. Russell Wilson, he had 6 carries himself. Some of those were kneel downs, mind you. 17 yards, an 8-yard long. And then Cordero Patterson. Oh, my gosh, Cordero Patterson. The freaking fumble. The knee-jerk reaction is I think I might have said cut him now. You just cut him. Just cut him. I was so pissed off when he fumbled that football. But still, I don't know. I have no idea. So, Bryan, what do you think about the running game?
I thought it was a beautiful strip, though. If I got to give Cleveland credit for something,
what are you doing trying to take the football up over top of a defender for?
Yeah, I get that, and you're absolutely correct. Yeah, I thought the running game was serviceable, and it was an AFC North game again. And Dave Schofield said this the other day on the preview. You've got to win the trenches. It doesn't seem like they overtly won the trenches, but when I'm watching that last drive of the game, I felt pretty good with that running game and them moving the chains. And when Najee got that first down, I was feeling bad for him that he didn't break it all the way. You could tell he wanted it almost to the point he was pissed. But here's something that I saw when Cordero Patterson fumbled. Mike Tomlin and Najee Harris, it's almost like they were, I don't want to say they were yucking it up, but Najee had a smile on his face. But it's like Najee said to him, don't worry, we got this. Or Najee might have been saying, I told you so, don't take me out. I mean, I don't know. I would, and
we'll find out Tuesday night.
We will. I guarantee you we will find that out. That's the glory of Hard Knocks. But so I'd love to know what that was, but I feel like it wasn't cockiness, but it was confidence. Like, all right, hey, we can afford this mistake. It's not going to happen again, coach. And I feel like this team has, I want to take old man Mike Tomlin's steady Eddie comment. I feel like they feel like they're steady Eddie right now.
I thought what was interesting, and this is where Dave would have like the first half, second half numbers for us. But I felt like as the game went on, the Steelers front started to kind of grind the Browns down a little bit. They started to wear them down. You saw guys like Mason McCormick getting up and getting excited and getting in guys' faces. That dude is fiery, by the way. I love that guy. He's going to be really good.
That's what they said about him when he was drafted.
Yeah, and Zach Frazier is they're just grinding these guys down. And eventually, like little by little, bit by bit, brick by brick, whatever analogy you want to use, they started to find their footing and they started to get those necessary yards. They were at least setting up third and manageables. And so I thought in terms of shifting from the running game to the offensive line, I thought they did a good job. Russell Wilson was only sacked that one time. And the Cleveland Browns defense, in terms of quarterback hits, they did have 7 quarterback hits, but you only got to him once. You only got to him one time, and that was a time where he just took a sack. He took the sack when Myles Garrett was there because he wanted to keep the clock rolling. Bryan, what was your take on the offensive line?
Well, Dan Moore had a much better game against Myles Garrett today. I know he gave up that sack there. I'm pretty sure that was him that gave it up. But Isaac Seumalo, who had a rough week last week, just a couple penalties, didn't hear his name. You're not hearing Zach Frazier and Mason McCormick, and you're not hearing Broderick Jones's name in a negative way either. I did not see that. There was maybe one false start penalty that, and I think it was on. It was on Moore. Okay,
it was on Dan Moore. Yeah,
and there was a penalty on Dan Moore.
And it's on Van Jefferson. He didn't.
Yeah, it was on
a tackle. He's got to be on the line of scrimmage there.
Yeah, that wasn't his fault, but he got called for it. But I think Broderick Jones is starting to settle in. We're not, I mean, this is like 3 or 4 weeks that we're not hearing anything negative about Broderick Jones. So I really like, I feel like Dave, when he mentioned win the trenches, I think they won the trenches more in this game because when you are wearing a team down in the fourth quarter, and just like the running game, 3.3 average for Najee, that's not amazing, but I had no doubt that they were going to completely move the chains there with their running game. And in the past, it wasn't like that.
No, not at all. Not at all. And so the Steelers offensive line, and you have to remember, they're starting to gain some continuity. And you think about just the different variations they've had along the line since the season started. So you have Zach Frazier, you've got James Daniels, you've got Troy Falatanu at right tackle, then you got Broderick Jones back in there. James Daniels is gone, Mason McCormick's in, but then Isaac Seumalo was out. So there was that one game where they had McCormick on the left side and James Daniels on the right. I could go on and on. It is a long list, but finally, post-bye, when Zach Frazier returned from his ankle injury, they have started to get that continuity necessary. Knock on wood. Let's hope that continuity remains. I agree with you. They're looking better. Things are looking up. So, all right, we've talked about the offense. So we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break for you. If you're watching this live on any platform, we're not going anywhere. If you're listening to us on the audio side, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back after the break, we're going to hit up some super chats. We've got some special team stuff to talk about. And of course, the defense. We'll be right back after this break. All right, Steeler fans, we are back second half. We've got some super chats. I appreciate people that put these in here and they're patient enough to wait for the answer. So let's get started. Justin Gall gives us $9.99 to 2nd and 1, turning into 3rd and 2, turning into 4th and 2 over and over is beyond discouraging. That's how you lose your first playoff game. That's my Debbie Downer comment. I mean, let's go back to the first series, the very first series of the game, the Steelers get the football to start. After the touchback, they start at the 30. The Cleveland Browns jump off sides, 1st and 5. They lose yardage. They end up going 3 and out. They cannot gain 5 flipping yards. Yeah, it's frustrating. It's okay to be frustrated, but they started to convert in the second half of the game after a really horrible 3rd down conversion start. I think they were 0 for 6 maybe, and they finished the game. Let me see if I can find this quickly. They finished the game for 3rd down efficiency 6 for 14. So it's not good, but at the same time, it improved a lot in the second half. So thank you very much for the tip. We appreciate it. What's up, Bryan? You want to say something?
Yeah, you know what? I want to continue to harp on this. And it's going to sound like an excuse, but when you lose a player on Friday,
yeah,
George Pickens, who is a mainstay of your offense, who you're probably building your offensive game plan around as far as the receivers go, it's going to no walkthrough can account for that. It takes some tough sledding to get started, and really once they got their feet under him, they were fine. But you're going to expect stuff like that from, my gosh, the world champions. You know, there was a 3 and out late in that Black Friday game, you know, where the Raiders should have won that game because of it was handed to them on a silver platter.
Yep.
And they had this big lead. They surrendered it, and they are the Kansas City Chiefs. They're the world champions. You're not. I have never seen a game that a team has scored on every single possession. So, I mean, I know it's frustrating. You want to clean this up, but a part of it is just getting more of those converting more of those situations into points. And that's what they're starting to do. I felt like it was in cruise control early in the 3rd quarter.
Yeah, I agree. This game was out of reach once the second half, the way it started for the Browns, which I'll bring this up from Justin because he brings it up. The kickoff team, he gives us $9.99. He said, I've been screaming from the mountaintop the last 5 weeks about Tomlin and Smith's decision to kick the ball off and play. This is killing us. Can I get your guys' take? So my take is that if you think back to how this second half started, the Steelers do choose to give them a returnable kick. They return it to inside the Steelers 40. Like, that was a tremendous return. And then they get a personal foul from Joey Porter Jr. one play later, and they end up missing the field goal. Everything flipped after that because the Steelers went down and scored a touchdown. And instead of it being 13-10 or 14-13 Cleveland, the Steelers are up 20-7. I thought it was over after that, but they dodged a huge bullet there, Bryan. Huge bullet.
Yeah, they absolutely did. But that's when I was starting to feel that when you get lucky, that's a hallmark of a good team too.
Yeah.
And you know, when they have those dumb dunderheaded plays, I thought, we'll probably talk about it more when we're talking about Porter. I thought that was absolutely dumb. And you know, it's just put your hands up like Michael Pruitt did late in the game. Just put his hands up, and that's what you've got to start doing, and that's what you got to start thinking about. But for me, it's when you go ahead and at least you stop them to make it a field goal, because they're getting momentum. You stop them to get field goal. Those field goals, I mean, 6 points makes this a different game, because next thing you know, there's a possibility this could be 27-20 at the end, and they've got a chance to score. And there's a different kind of desperation. Yeah. There's a different kind of step in Jameis Winston's step.
There you go.
There, Jason Winston. Yeah, I don't.
It's Jason.
I drank. Actually, I don't. I should start. I need to start. Yeah. No, you know what I mean? There's something different going on there. So when you stop that, and then you could suddenly see the air with those field goals and just stopping them from converting, it just felt like a different game in the second half. And the Steelers, they might have been missing kicks, but the Steelers were forcing those situations, and they were deflating the Browns.
Absolutely. Tom Plays Game gives us $10. It's Tom Muir. He said $1 per W. Great to get that one back on the Factory of Sadness. Defense looked good. Offense looked good enough to win, and the teams We're the pride of Danny's eye. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Thank you very much for the tip. We appreciate it. Let's go down under to our buddy Marky D. Gives us $5 dingo dollars. Says, good day, SCN. I think Ben Skoranek is wide receiver number 2. Shout out to a huge team win. I'm going to drink sherbets at the Winners Pub. I guess are those beers? Is that they call beers down under? I don't know. It's sherbet. Sherbet for me is like rainbow sherbet that you get at the ice cream parlor.
Yeah, and it's really good stuff.
Eric Weidman gives us $5. His first super chat in a while. Appreciate the content and shows all week. Just makes my week better. Well, we're glad that you appreciate it, because we like doing it. It's a labor of love for sure. And then Justin Gall gives us another $9.99. Says, special teams, finally a good punt by Waitman in the third quarter after a terrible streak. Unfortunate, given that he may have been the best punter in the league through the first 9 weeks. I thought Waitman had a great game. I thought he had a fantastic game, to be honest with you. And let me look at his numbers here. Corliss Waitman had 6 punts, an average of 52.3, and a long of 60. I thought he had a great game. Yes, he had the shank in Cleveland in the blizzard conditions, and that sucks. But at the same time, that was a literal blip on the radar. Let's talk about special teams real quick, Brian, since it's been brought up. Chris Boswell remains money in the bank. He makes both of his field goals, a long of 54. He makes all of his extra points, all 3 of them. Corliss Waitman, I talked about his numbers. And, oh, by the way, they do come up with a takeaway when Kadarius Toney fumbles the football on the last punt and Ben Skoranek recovers. What was your take on special teams?
You know what? I love the fact that Toney, felt the footsteps, and he knew Skoranek was coming.
He had to backpedal too. He was not expecting that long of a punt, so he had to backpedal. That was the first.
And that punt, how far did that punt travel? Because I know it wasn't the 60-yarder, but it felt like he boomed that one. The 60-yarder I know was on the first punt.
Yeah.
But he just crushed that ball, and with a back pedal, and guy was bearing down on him. And we know the kind of hands that he had in Kansas City and other places. That's why he's available and why the Steelers did not pick him up. So, you know what? I just think that they're energized. You've got a guy that is leading the Pro Bowl voting right now in Miles Killebrew, and he does a lot of the dirty work. You don't hear his name as much, but he's out there doing it. But Ben Skoranek, my goodness, he has become a special teams demon, and he's just special to that team. And you have other guys there. They all know their role. They all value their role. And Danny Smith this is one of the best years I've ever seen Danny Smith have. I think the past couple of years have been very good with Danny Smith, but this is one of the best special teams play I've seen in a long time from the Steelers. We know that Boz is gold. We know back on week 1 that we were dreading the loss of Cameron Johnston, and who would have thunk? A lot of people thought that Presley Harvin would be coming back. Oh. Who would have thunk Corliss Waitman? And nobody got excited about the Corliss Waitman thing until they saw him punt in week 2. So they're just great things from Corliss Waitman that you got to believe in those bottom of the roster guys. And the Steelers, one thing that Mike Tomlin does very well, one thing that Danny Smith does very well, is let those bottom of the roster guys know how important they are to the team. Nobody is discounted. There's nobody that's that feels like they're the bottom of the totem pole.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought special teams, outside of just not kicking the ball out of the flipping end zone, I thought they played great. Now, defensively, boy, this Steelers defense, they find unique ways to impact the game. So, how many people out there, whether you're watching live, listening in audio, Brian, you're right here talking to me. How many people had Keanu Benton with more interceptions than Minkah Fitzpatrick this season? Anyone? Oh, no one. That's right. How many people with Jimmy Pierre having more interceptions than me? It's not a cut on Minkah. It's just the fact that they are finding all these different ways of getting people involved. And it's a different person every week that's making that play. Keanu Benton rumbling, fumbling, stumbling down the field, eventually gets tackled by Nick Chubb because they were setting up a screen. The Steelers did what they had to do against Jameis Winston because Jameis Winston does turn the ball over. So let's talk about his stat line. Jameis Winston goes 24 of 41 for 212 yards, a 5.2 yard average, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, was sacked 3 times for a 68.3 rating. That 212 is so inflated because of the last, like the fourth quarter, the end of the third quarter, where the Steelers are like, hey, if you want to dink and dunk your way down the field when you're trailing by 3 touchdowns and you want to just slowly matriculate your way down the field, go ahead. Jameis Winston struggled, and the Steelers had 6 quarterback hits. So they didn't even get to him a lot like they did Joe Burrow last week. What did you think about, let's talk about the pass defense first, Brian. Brought up James Pierre, Keanu Benton with an interception, Deshaun Elliott, Patrick Queen, both with pass defenses, DeMonte KZ with another one. What's your take on the pass D?
Well, I will say that Joey Porter Jr. calmed down a little bit this week. I did not like the unnecessary roughness. He needs to keep his head in games like that. That could have been a very dangerous penalty, getting those 15 yards. However, I thought he held it down a whole lot better. I really like Jerry Jeudy and what he is doing. I almost feel like, boy, they if these two were together at the beginning of the season, this might be a different Browns team. I really think, because Jameis Winston is going to throw a lot of picks, and I get that, but I kind of feel like these two have got a nice connection going, and it continued at the beginning of this game with Jerry Jeudy. But after that, they kind of just they buckled down. So I like the pass defense in this game. I thought it was good. You're going to give up yards to any quarterback in this league, especially like you just said, in garbage time. Those dinks and dunks in garbage time, you're going to give that kind of stuff up. One of the guys that I watched was like, here they go, the prevent defense, and this is ridiculous. And I'm like, look, no, I mean, this is what you do. You just don't let them have that big play. So I'm giving up those dinks when you're up 27-7.
Well, yeah, and you're watching the clock, and like, man, they're letting the clock run down to 2 seconds to snap the ball, and it's like Chris Berman, the tick, 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 tick. It's literally just, yeah. I tweeted out, I don't know how many times, boy, they are really taking their time when you're trailing by 3 scores. So the Steelers defense is like, hey, take your time, like that's fine, but we'll give you these plays. I understand that, but you brought up Jerry Jeudy, who did have 64 yards, but 35 of them came on that touchdown. And he was targeted 6 times at 5 catches. They did a pretty good job of bottling him up. David Njoku, 7 catches for 42 yards. Elijah Moore, 3 for 34. Jerome Ford, 3 for 19. Prochet had 18 yards on 2 catches. And then a bunch of others with 1 or 2 catches. I was really pissed that Joey Porter Jr. got that flag, because I thought he had a great bounce back game, except for that stupid personal foul.
Yep.
Like that was like, okay, you kind of got over everything. You guys have kept the Browns in kind of locked down for the most part after they exploded on Monday Night Football against the Broncos. And it's like, okay, don't do it. And then he does that stupid penalty. It's just like, man, can we just, I know it's learning, it's growing pains, Brian, but that's frustrating. I thought the Steelers secondary actually played a decent game.
Yeah. I just want you to, growing up in the Davis household, we called it take a jacket, play the game. Because my sister would be told, hey, take a jacket. I don't want to take a jacket. She would argue like crazy. She wouldn't get to go out. Brian, take a jacket. Okay, are you going to wear it? I don't know. If I'm cold, I will. I never got in trouble. I never got grounded. I always got to go where I wanted to go. These young players with the retaliation stuff, take a jacket. Just say, look, all right, you're going to do that to me. I'm going to step back and let you get caught.
Yeah. I got to put this up here because it's really funny. James Galloway has a good nickname for Joey Porter Jr., aka Six Flags.
Yeah, you get the free super chat.
You do. We're bringing that up. That was pretty creative. Hey, I like that.
If he gets the endorsement for that,
could you imagine seeing him on a commercial like, "Hi, I'm Joey Porter Jr. I've gotten 6 Flags thrown on me a game, and I think you should go to 6 Flags yourself." I just wrote the script. You're welcome. 6 Flags. Anyway.
I love it.
All right. So I'm going to bring this up here. Heath Davis gives us $2. Said Myles Garrett eats corn dogs, sticks first. Thank you for the tip, man. We appreciate
I
it.
don't know what that means, but that's your last name's Davis, so you're going to say ridiculous things like that. I love it, and I'm going to probably quote you on that, Heath.
He's a ride or die crew member. He's always a loyal participant in the mailbag segment. So, all right, let's go to the run defense, the Steelers' run defense. Which, can I just say, first and foremost, before I talk about the Browns' numbers, Mr. Landon Roberts, we see you, Mr. Landon Roberts, completely annihilating a pulling center on a play. I see you, Landon Roberts, blowing up a Landon Roberts. Fantastic, Landon Roberts. So let's talk about the run defense. Nick Chubb rushes for 48 yards on 11 carries. Jameis Winston is the second leading rusher with 28 yards on 4 carries, and Jerome Ford has 28 yards himself. The Steelers, in terms of the tackling, Deshaun Elliott leads the team with 13 tackles, 9 of them solo. I thought he had a fantastic game. Patrick Queen, 10 tackles, 5 solo. Joey Porter Jr. actually third on the list, 6 tackles, 5 solo. Beanie Bishop getting in with 6 tackles. Cam Hayward just having himself a hell of a game. 5 tackles, 3 solo, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for losses, 2 quarterback hits. We're going to talk about the pass rush in a second, but let's talk about the run defense first, Brian. What were your take?
Right away, behind the line of scrimmage, TJ Watt. I mean, I'm looking up. Is that a sack? No. Yeah, he's tackling Chubb, and it seemed to be a thing. Those I don't know how many tackles for loss they had on running backs, but I thought it was pretty incredible. And when they were going for it on 4th and 1 and situations like that, my buddy was like, here they're going to convert. I'm like, no, they're not. They're dialed in. So that was one of the best run defenses I've seen this season, and I thought they've had a pretty good season with run defenses.
Yeah,
but this was just phenomenal. Some of those plays, I mean, they were walloping guys behind the line of scrimmage. They did control the trenches just in that manner. And guys like E-Robs, you're not gonna say his name a lot, but I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said I see you, because 50 is a really important player for that team.
So they had 7 tackles for losses, the Steelers defense. 3 of them came on sacks. So that means they had 4 plays where they stopped a runner of some way in behind the line of scrimmage.
That's a big deal.
That is a big deal. It was a great game for the run defense. And, the Browns were not known for running the football. They've had their struggles there, but it was funny. Nick Chubb had that a long of 19 yards, and he ran up. I was like, gosh darn it. I've seen that way too many times in his career against the Steelers, but they bottled it up. So let's finish this defensive talk with the pass rush, because they did get to Jameis Winston 3 times. They had 6 quarterback hits in the game. And the totals here, let's take a look, see. We had sacks. Cam had 2, and Alex Highsmith had the other. That was it. There's your 3 sacks right there. I thought it was a great game. The defensive front, you could tell the Steelers were taking an approach of, we're only going to blitz if it's absolutely necessary. And they didn't have to blitz all that much. And so I thought the pass rush did enough. They only sent 4 a lot of the time. Every now and then when they did blitz, good things happened. Patrick Queen got some pressure. Beanie Bishop's blitz off the edge was what caused that Keanu Benton interception. Winston had to float the ball, and Benton was able to move in front of Nick Chubb and come up with the interception. What did you think about the pass rush, Brian?
You know what? The entire defense, I thought the pass rush was phenomenal. I thought it was really good. They did exactly what they needed to do. They did not have to overdo it. They didn't have to over pursue. They just let the defense control the game so the offense could get themselves together. And the offense got themselves together, but the defense held them in this game. If the defense didn't play lights out the way they did, now I know they gave up that 7 right away, but if they didn't play lights out in that manner, then this could very easily have been 14-3 early in favor of the Browns, and you're chasing them, and you don't want to be in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the Steelers, they are a team that it's not like what we're used to seeing. I mean, Brian, we could go down the list of all the different teams and all the names we had for the amount of blitzing that they're doing. This team doesn't blitz a lot. They are more of we trust that our defensive front, whoever we decide to send on that play, is going to win. TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, on and on and on. Preston Smith now getting in on the mix. That's just their philosophy. And they hope that the secondary can hold up in the back end. And more often than not, it's worked. It's absolutely worked. And so while I wish that we would see those sack numbers increase, they've done a good job the last 2 weeks. They've had 7 sacks in the last 2 weeks. So maybe it's a little resurgence. They are starting to blitz a little bit more. So we'll see. We will see. Let's get some super chats up here. I want to get these on the screen. David Poe gives us $4.99. Said, how about those linebackers? I'm loving it. E-Rob, Peyton Wilson had a great game. Patrick Queen, Watt, Highsmith back, but so glad Hayward is back to his old self. If anyone has any doubt about Cam Hayward, well, you're not watching the same game. We'll put it that way. Let's go to Wilson Pava, gives us $4.99. Says, JPJ, you just won the Super Bowl. Where are you going? I'm going to Six Flags. I'm ready to believe we can win some playoff games after today. That's great. I'm glad that there's people that are slowly starting to come around to this team being a contender. And they're a 10-win team. They're 10-3, guys. Come on. And gals. 10-3. All right, we have 2 from Steeler Fan 69. I guess he doubled up on the super chat. I appreciate both of them. $5. Said, Mariah Carey's husband bought her property. Should I get? Oh, this is the correct one. She said, so let me start over because he had to send him twice. Mariah Carey's husband bought her property so they could build their dream house. She said, I don't want a lot for Christmas. Thank you very much. The dad jokes are here. They're here. All right. So the Steelers win 27-14. You can look ahead and say, here we go. The Eagles coming up. Can they win there for the first time in a long time? Possibly. But this win was big. It was a huge win. Bryan, what are your final thoughts?
Jeff, it's simple. We've had a lot of comments today, and there's still a lot of worry about this team. And I brought up the Kansas City Chiefs. I brought up teams like that. So this is something that I've invented maybe about 6 months ago. It's a phrase, and it's this: being perfect isn't real, but being real is perfect. And when I watch this Pittsburgh Steelers team in all 3 phases of the game, they are real. And if that's as close to perfect as you're going to get, I'd like to see this real team go far in the Super Bowl. And I believe they can too, just like others do here. So it's just absolutely a phenomenal feeling. We keep asking for those games where we could sit back in the fourth quarter. And you did it, Jeff. You know, the girls did it. My family, we all sat back in the fourth quarter and we're like, okay. I mean, you don't celebrate until there's zeros on the clock, but you felt pretty good in the entire fourth quarter. By the time they played Renegade, this game was way over. So, they can try to come back, but you knew they weren't going to let it get that far. And when you have the Cordero Patterson miscue, team comes right back up and steps up. So I feel pretty good about it. I will like to say this, Jeff. I will not be here next week. I'm going to be with my boy KT in Philadelphia. And we're going to go ahead and I'll have a chance to be in studio. So I won't be here next week, but I won't be in studio. I'll be in stadium, excuse me.
There you go.
So I'll try to get KT and we'll go ahead and get on the if we can get good internet, we'll be chiming in from the city of brotherly shove.
There you go. Let's get Kathy Ford at $2 said hashtag pay Kyle for the good karma. Kyle and Big Bro Rich were in attendance. I heard Rich say that he is undefeated, I think, since the COVID year when he's at games. And so that streak continues. Good for him. I'm glad to see. Maybe he should go to more games. That would be even better. But my final thoughts on this before we call it a show is the Steelers, everyone wants to talk about like a letdown game. This would have been the letdown game. I hope y'all realize that. You lose in week 12, whatever. You win big, a huge offensive output in Cincinnati, and then you could obviously get caught looking ahead, looking at Philly, looking at Baltimore, looking at Kansas City. They didn't. They stayed focused. They found a way to win this game, and it's a big win. The litmus test is coming. So is this team a Super Bowl contender? We will know. We don't have to make assumptions. We're going to find out. We knew this was coming. It starts next week in Philadelphia. If you go into Philadelphia and you beat the Philadelphia Eagles, there should be no one saying, oh, this team doesn't have what it takes. No, they absolutely will prove to you whether they have what it takes or not. There's 3 upcoming games that'll dictate whether the Steelers are for real or whether they are merely pretenders. The next up is a big one at Philadelphia. Bryan will be in attendance. That's going to be a lot of fun. I will be back with Dave Schofield in the post-game show. And here we go, 10-3. Enjoy this win, folks. We've had a lot of them this season. Don't take that for granted. But we'll be back next week, and make sure you check out SteelCurtainNetwork.com. That website is active. It is live. Go check it out right now, SteelCurtainNetwork.com. And don't forget to check out all of our audio-only podcasts, my Let's Ride podcast, where I put some segments on YouTube, but not the full show. Find it every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, wherever you get your podcast. You can check out Bryan and Coach KT Smith on the Here We Go Steelers show. That's coming up tomorrow, Monday at 11 a.m. Dave Schofield's Pittsburgh Standard Time, all of it, wherever you get your podcast by searching Steel Curtain Network. Bryan, thanks for your time, man. I appreciate it. Enjoy the game next week. We'll be in touch. Folks, Steelers win. We'll see you on our post-game show. Take care.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.